Hi teachers, and welcome to our weekly lessons where we empower your students to write well. Today I want to discuss something that's on everyone's mind at some point in their classroom. How do I manage this? Now what I have in my classroom is I've got these writers, they're doing really good work, they're practicing skills, but I have writing notebooks full of pages. I don't know what to do with all of those pages, and here's what I find. Kids don't know what to do with them either. So today I want to talk a little bit about some management tips. How are you going to manage your writing classroom, including what to do with all of those papers? First of all, it's a really personal decision to teachers. I know in my own classroom, I had a very specific way of doing things in my classroom for all subjects that I taught. And I made sure that the kids understood that management system. So I took some time early in the year to make sure that we went over those processes. That way, by March, and I told my kids to take out their notebooks, they knew exactly what it was I was talking about. If I wanted them to take out their science folders, they knew what that was. So let's talk a little bit about that. In terms of your writing classroom, there's a couple of ways to look at it. One way of managing all of the paperwork and all of the skills that you're teaching, including all of the genres that you have to teach, is to get a binder for each child. What I like about the binder is that I can actually have kids decorate it. They can put their name on it so it's personalized. And then on the inside, I can put tabs inside of that binder. I can put a genre tab, so if we're working in narrative writing, I'll have a genre tab for narrative, I'll have one for expository, one for opinion and/or argument, depending on what it is I'm teaching. And then within that genre, I can tab for each skill. So now when my kids are practicing, they can put a little 3-hole punch together, put it right inside the tab that relates to the skill and the genre that they're using. So that's one way to kind of keep all the paperwork together. Now another way, and this is kind of how I did it in my classroom because there's a few reasons why. In my classroom, I always had a folder and a notebook. And what my kids did was this. Anytime I needed to photocopy some of the pages that we were working on, usually it was the annotation pages that I had to photocopy. I would do that. We would do the work, and then they would put it right there in their writing folder. That way, they had it handy as a reference tool. Now, you can't keep all of those pages, but I certainly want to make sure that I have at least one expository annotated page and one narrative annotated page so that my kids can go back and use that. Some of the others, the more sophisticated, as we get really good at that annotation, I can then send that home and have students really explain that to their parents and help them to understand what it is we're doing in our writing classroom. Then, when it's time to do some of the practice work, or we want to do a process writing piece, that's where the notebook comes in. In my classroom, what I did was I actually took sticky notes and we tabbed each section. So I had a narrative section of our notebook. I had an expository and an opinion section. Then within each of those sections, my students would just write a heading. So if we were practicing entertaining beginnings, for instance, up on the top of the page, it would say entertaining beginnings. Then they would write the topic. So let's say we were using our entertaining beginning and we were revising a boring beginning like one dark night I took a walk in the woods. They would just write woods, and then we would practice each of the skills. So action, we would label that dialogue, we would label that thought question or sound, and they would practice that. If we were practicing an expository and we were learning all about the detail generating questions, what does it look like? Why is it important? That would be their heading, and then they do the practice in there. What I like about the notebook is this. It gives kids an opportunity to write in authentic ways. And as a teacher, I got a little tired of going to the photocopy machine, waiting 10 minutes in line for the other teachers to be done, and then having all those papers stuffed inside the folder. So I really enjoyed having everything in one handy place. That way the papers didn't get lost. If we ever wanted to go back to it, it was right there for my kids. Then, what I like about it again is that notebook fits right into that folder, all goes right into the student desk. And when I say to my kids, time to pull out your writing folder, Everything is in one nice, neat pile, for the most part. So, hopefully that management tip will help you in your writing classroom. Think about what you like, the binder system or the folder with the notebook. Either one would work really well.